begin the gusset. And the gusset is the point where you start picking things up, picking up the stitches along the heel flap, knitting across to the instep stitches, then picking up the stitches along this way, and then you're back to knitting in the round. Before you start, I want you to mark the middle of your heel. And the middle of the heel is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We have 12 stitches on our needle, and so we want to put our marker between the 6th and 7th stitches so that we mark the center of the heel. Okay, just leave that marker in place. Now, we're going to pick up the heel flap stitches by going through the slip stitches on the edge right here. And it's a little tricky because you got to use the point of this needle. I'm going to use my left needle to help me with this first one. I want to wrap my yarn and pull it through. And then you can just use your right needle to pick up these stitches along the edge here. Make sure you go under both strands of that slip stitch. And you just go all the way down the heel flap. Okay, I'm getting close to the point where I've got all my slip stitches picked up. Okay, so I've picked up all my slip stitches along this heel. Now I'm back to the point where I'm going to start knitting across the instep. So I'm going to bring my instep stitch just up on my needle that's been waiting patiently in place. And in order to avoid a gap, when we close this heel, sometimes you get a gap. The way to avoid that is to pick up this strand that's running between this stitch and this stitch. You can kind of see it right here. Pick it up and put it on the needle and knit through it. That twists that stitch, but it also closes up the hole. And then we're just going to knit across the instep stitches. I'll pause while I do that. Okay, so I've knit across the instep stitches, and I'm back to the point where I need to start picking up stitches for the other side of the heel. And I have the same issue. There's a potential for a gap between right here. And again, I need to get my needle in place here. I'm not going to be knitting with the instep stitch needle. I'm going to be knitting with the heel stitch needle at this point. And I need to pick up that stitch again and knit it. Like so. All right, now pull that, snug that up, and begin picking up the slip stitches along this side of the heel flap. Okay, and now I'm ready to start knitting across the heel again. So I'm going to knit to this center point to where we've marked the center of the heel. And this is the end of the round. Okay. And at this point, we will start our decreases for the gusset. All right, we've knit the gusset stitches to the beginning of the round. And I just want to turn this around so you can see how things are laid out here. I've got all of my heel stitches, which will eventually become my sole stitches, and I've got my instep stitches on my other needle. I've marked my center point. This marks the beginning of the round and the center of the heel. And we're going to begin doing decreases at this point, and we're going to decrease on the corner of where the gusset lies. So we're going to be knitting the gusset by knitting down to the last 3 stitches on this side of the heel. Here, stop. So I'm down to the last 3 stitches, and at this point I'm going to do a decrease. And I'm going to decrease by knitting 2 together and then knitting 1. Then I'm going to switch to knitting the instep stitches. I'll pause while I do that until we get back over to the other side of the heel. So I've knit across to my instep stitches, and I'm back to the heel stitches. And I'm going to do a decrease at this point on this side of the gusset. So I'm going, this decrease is going to be as knit 1 and then a slip, slip, knit, or an SSK. And then we knit back to the end of the round. Now remember, I began my decreases at the beginning of this round. And so this is now the end of the round when I get to the marker. And I'm starting another round when I slip the marker. Now you're going to be doing a decrease round every other round. So Now that I've done decreases on both sides of my gusset, I'm just going to knit her plain round until I get back to this point, and then I will do a decrease on this edge, knit around, and do a decrease on this edge. And you just do those 2 rows until you're back to your original 20 stitches. I've finished knitting the gusset stitches. So I have decreased along this edge and decreased along this edge, and now I have 20 stitches on my instep needle and 20 stitches on my heel needle. So we're ready to just begin knitting the body of the sock, which is the instep stitches and the heel stitches down to the point where we'll start the toe. In the pattern, you will be measuring from this point to this point, and it needs to be approximately 8 inches in length before you start the toe. The toe will be approximately 2 inches long.